बात है. Imran Khan had been elected or selected, the correct word is he'd been selected by the army, और मैं भी उस presidential palace में था उस दिन, उनका swearing in हो रहा था. और उस समय जनरल बाजवा he had invited his cricketing friends, Sunil Gavaskar and Kapil Dev and Sidhu. Only Sidhu had come for various reasons, the others couldn't come. And just before the swearing in, the people were walking around and General Bajwa met him and he told him this thing कि करतारपुर साहब हम खोलने वाले हैं. He whispered. And I couldn't hear it. I was at some distance. And there was this spontaneous hug. Now, what had happened was, this is the television image that became very, very popular. उसका भी background है. करतारपुर साहब भारत की मांग रही है बहुत सालों से कि ये कॉरिडोर खोला जाए, क्योंकि हमारे देश से लोग, the devout, wanted to go across to the holiest of shrines of Sikhism, and where Guru Nanak breathed his last, and see that वो बिल्कुल पास था border के. तो ये खोलने की मांग हमेशा से बहुत सालों से रही है, और finally पाकिस्तान seemed to be agreeing to it. तो उस समय पता भी नहीं था कि ये serious है कि नहीं. तो मैंने सिद्धू साहब को तब बताया था कि ये जो आपने किया है, भारत का आपने टीवी देखा, इस्लामाबाद में मुझसे मिले थे कि
आपको गालियां पड़ रही हैं.
हाँ, बहुत ही इसमें विवाद हो गया है, कंट्रोवर्सी है, आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे, कुछ करेक्ट करना चाहेंगे, तो उन्होंने डिसमिस कर दिया कि ये नहीं, अभी कोई ज़रूरत नहीं, जो मैंने कह दिया वो कह दिया. बट ये एक मूव था पाकिस्तान आर्मी का इमरान खान के स्वेरिंग इन से पहले. तो इट वाज ऑब्वियसली अ मूव दैट वाज सपोर्टेड बाय पाकिस्तान आर्मी. It was welcome from India's point of view because it allowed the devout in India to go across there, but clearly it was an attempt also for Pakistan's army and its deep state to become more involved in Punjab. But despite that, I think it was a positive move, और उसमें हम फिर आगे बढ़े.
आपने करतारपुर कॉरिडोर को एक अपने पाकिस्तानी टेन्योर की हाईलाइट भी बताया है, और ये डिस्कस जो हम कर रहे थे भी पंजाबी जप्पी के बारे में, इंटरेस्टिंग बात इसमें ये भी है कि इंडियन गवर्नमेंट को कम्युनिकेट नहीं किया गया था तब तक, आपको कुछ नहीं बताया गया था, और सीधा सिद्धू साहब के कान में जाकर जनरल बाजवा ने ये गुड न्यूज़ उनके कानों में विस्पर कर दी थी. तो और आपने ये लिखा कि जब करतारपुर कॉरिडोर पर जो इंडियन गवर्नमेंट का स्टैंड था वो एक्चुअली अप्रिशिएट किया जाना चाहिए, ये देखते हुए कि ह्यूज सिक्योरिटी कंसर्न्स रहे हैं इंडिया के, लेकिन बावजूद इसके आपने लिखा कि you have said that it showed to me the successful working of Indian democracy, where the sentiments of a sizable population of Punjab were privileged over security concerns by India's leadership.
Bilkul, and I really believe that, because what happened was that there were a lot of security concerns, क्यों किया जा रहा है, और कई चीजें उसमें negotiations में उभर के आ रही थी. But still the political leadership in India decided कि 550th anniversary of Guru Nanak was coming, that this was an important issue, no matter what the security concerns, let's deal with them. उनको address किया जाए, उनको समझा जाए, but फिर भी आगे बढ़ा जाए. So I think that was the important takeaway, that India's democracy, so for instance, if we had only a military regime, it may have looked at it differently. But, in India's system, there are checks and balances and different considerations. Or overall view ये लिया गया कि नहीं, overall it's welcome and let's go ahead with this project.
और ये अपने आप में एक बड़ा डिसीजन था, और हमने देखा कि किस तरह से इसे इंडिया ने दोनों मतलब ओपन हार्ट से इसे वेलकम किया. क्रिकेट के बारे में बात करना चाहती हूँ, क्योंकि इमरान खान के बारे में बहुत बात हो रही है, कप्तान साहब की बहुत बात हो रही है, और आपने जिस तरह से उनके बारे में नवजोत सिंह सिद्धू वाला जो इंसिडेंट था और इमरान खान की वो स्वेरिंग इन थी, और आपने क्रिकेट की एनालॉजी बहुत यूज़ की है अपनी इस बुक में। आपने ये भी बताया कि कैसे इमरान खान, वैसे मुझे नहीं पता यहाँ कितने लोगों को पता है, लेकिन इमरान खान नियाजी ने, आई कॉल हिम इमरान खान नियाजी बिकॉज ही डजंट लाइक नियाजी वर्ड फॉर गिवन रीजंस इन 1971 वॉर। तो इमरान खान ने सर को बताया कि विराट कोहली जो है ही इज ग्रेटर देन सचिन तेंदुलकर। कितने लोग अग्री करते हैं इस बात से? यहाँ पर रेज योर हैंड्स। सिर्फ 2 4। सो अभी भी ज्यादातर लोग यही मानते हैं कि सचिन तेंदुलकर इज ग्रेटर देन विराट कोहली, लेकिन इमरान खान ने आपसे कहा कि विराट इज ग्रेटर देन सचिन तेंदुलकर। और आपने बल्ले को लेकर भी लिखा है कि आपने बैट्स प्रोक्योर किए बीसीसीआई से, जिसमें इंडियन टीम के ऑटोग्राफ थे, एंड द टीम दैट वाज लेड बाय विराट कोहली। तो क्रिकेट, अब इसके 2 हिस्से हैं। एक तो जो आपका क्रिकेट को लेकर आपने एक बल्ला भी शायद उन्हें गिफ्ट किया, और दूसरा क्रिकेट डिप्लोमेसी, क्योंकि हमने प्रेसिडेंट जिया, राजीव गांधी, प्राइम मिनिस्टर राजीव गांधी से, फिर प्राइम मिनिस्टर वाजपेयी, और अक्सर ये कहा जाता है कि जैसे पर्पल पैच होता है तो क्रिकेट में, तो अगर इंडिया और पाकिस्तान के रिश्ते का पर्पल पैच देखना हो तो देख लो वो दोनों बायलैटरल सीरीज खेल रहे हैं या नहीं खेल रहे हैं। तो ये क्रिकेट डिप्लोमेसी को लेकर भी आपके पास लोग आए कि भाई क्रिकेट कराइए, दोनों देशों के लोग खेलें, आवाम आए जाए, इस तरह के प्रपोजल तो आए होंगे।
इस तरह के प्रपोजल हमेशा टेबल पे रहते हैं। तो cricket diplomacy is a very important part of sports diplomacy, of people to people diplomacy, especially between India and Pakistan. और इतिहास देखें तो बहुत बार इसको इस्तेमाल किया गया है। इसमें गुडविल भी क्रिएट होती है और कभी कभी इलविल भी, कभी तकलीफें भी होती हैं। कई बार क्रिकेट के बहाने पाकिस्तान के डिक्टेटर्स यहाँ आए। जियाउल हक केम टू सी अ क्रिकेट मैच, मुशर्रफ केम टू सी अ क्रिकेट मैच। तो कई बार क्रिकेट के बहाने कुछ हमारी क्रिकेट डिप्लोमेसी भी चली। और आपने बैट का जिक्र किया, तो इमरान खान के स्वेरिंग इन से कुछ दिन पहले मैं जब उनसे मिला तो आई हैड गिफ्टेड हिम दिस बैट साइंड बाय द क्रिकेट टीम। एंड इंसिडेंटली ऑन विराट कोहली, हिज व्यू वाज दैट देखिए तेंदुलकर ने जो सेंचुरीज बनाई, he did it at a time when India was largely winning and so on. Virat Kohli, his centuries made India win matches. So that was his argument as a cricket commentator and cricket analyst. So what happened was that, I had given this bat, and of course, the bat has been a strong symbol of Pakistan's politics in recent times. क्योंकि अब बातचीत हो रही है लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड की, कि लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड का मतलब हुआ कि इमरान खान को जेल में डाल दिया गया और नवाज शरीफ को बाहर निकाला गया। एक तरह से लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड का मतलब हुआ कि इमरान खान को लेवल कर दिया गया टू द ग्राउंड। एंड अभी कहा गया जब उनसे उनका बैट सिंबल ले लिया गया, वो पीटीआई पार्टी का था, कि दे सेड दैट उनका बैट भी छीन लिया, फिर भी कप्तान साहब ने एक सेंचुरी बनाई, 100 उनके इंडिपेंडेंस जीते। बट I think the cricket analogies go only to a point. Cricket diplomacy goes only to a point, because if the relationship is sour after, say, a terrorist incident, then there's not much you can do to revive the people-to-people diplomacy. But at the same time, it is an instrument, a tool in our diplomacy which we can deploy whenever the need arises.
क्योंकि इमरान खान की बात हो रही है तो उन्हीं के पर्सोना का हिस्सा है बुशरा बीबी, और पाकिस्तान के बारे में एक चीज़ कही जाती है, इट्स अ कंट्री विच इज़ वेरी हाई ऑन एंटरटेनमेंट वैल्यू। सो बुशरा बीबी को लेके आपने कुछ बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग स्निपेट्स मैंने आपकी बुक में पढ़े। एक तो जनरल बाजवा की पत्नी और इनकी मुलाकात हुई, जनरल बाजवा और प्राइम मिनिस्टर, तब वो प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे इमरान खान नियाजी की, अलॉन्ग विद देयर पार्टनर्स। और आपने वो इंसिडेंट लिखा है कि जनरल बाजवा की जो वाइफ है आयशा, उन्होंने बाहर आकर जनरल बाजवा से कहा, सेव योर प्राइम मिनिस्टर इफ यू कैन। व्हाट वाज दैट स्टोरी?
Yeah, so I think it's a very interesting story, and it's one of the things that you gather in Pakistan, that in the diplomatic community, in a non-transparent system, ये बातें काफ़ी उछलती हैं, चलती हैं। People talk about these things because you're not aware of what is really happening behind the scenes. And I think Imran Khan's third wife, Bushra Bibi, was really part of his personality, his charisma, his persona. कि एक मिस्ट्री है उनके बारे में बहुत बातचीत की जाती है और उनका पॉलिटिक्स में भी रोल रहा है. तो अब हाल ही में जो इंसिडेंट्स हुए on 8 February, Imran Khan, you would recall, was sentenced in 3 cases while he was in prison. एक में उनको 14 साल की जेल हुई, एक में 10 साल की जेल हुई for treason, for corruption, but also in the case of his marriage, because Bushra Bibi had earlier been married, तो वो उसमें कहा गया कि इद्दत के समय में ये शादी हुई, so therefore it was illegal. And I think it was a message from the army, a very chilling message to the voter, कि आप इनको वोट ना दें, he is out of the system, we are going to get him on everything, including his marriage. But it had the opposite effect. लोगों ने बोला कि ये तो हद हो गई, ये तो बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया, उसकी शादी के बारे में भी आर्मी क्यों घुस के उसके बारे में बात कर रही है. So it got him a lot of sympathy, and a lot of people said that they were going to vote for Nawaz, but when this happened, they decided to cross over. So, it works both ways. It's very colorful, it's very entertaining, but it's part of Pakistan's politics.
So, what is the sentiment on the ground जब बुशरा बीवी की बात की जाती है, क्योंकि आपने ये भी लिखा कि jinns, so there were stories about excessive use of white powder. Jinns fed red meat on the roof every day, and how he as in Imran Khan Niazi, being caught sexting with his lady ministers, leading to sharp domestic strife.
Well, so I give this as an illustration of the kind of conversations going on in Pakistan's media and in diplomatic circles, because they felt that this had an important bearing in what was happening, and there were various leaks happening. जब पाकिस्तान में लीक्स होते हैं, ऑडियो लीक, वीडियो लीक, हर तरह के लीक आते हैं, तो कहा जाता है कि आर्मी के पास हर एक इंसान जो कुछ भी मायने रखता है पाकिस्तान में, उसके बारे में एक डॉसियर है जिसमें वीडियोस हैं, ऑडियोज हैं, जब ज़रूरत पड़े वो इस्तेमाल होते हैं. तो ये हमने देखा पिछले 1 साल में कि बहुत सारे वीडियोस और ऑडियोज बाहर आए. तो दिस इज जस्ट एन इलस्ट्रेशन ऑफ द काइंड ऑफ लीवर्स the deep state and the army has on the politicians, कि उनको इस्तेमाल किया जाए, उनकी public image को change किया जाए. But, despite all this, Imran Khan remains the most popular political force in Pakistan.
And how much...
I also called him the ex that refuses to go away.
Oh, wow.
कि आपका कोई ex है, वो आपको stalk करता जा रहा है, he's the ex of the army. But he just doesn't go away. You lock him up, whatever you do.
Good analogy, and many would connect with that. एक और, क्योंकि हम इमरान खान नियाजी की बात करें और ऐसे टाइम की बात करें when पुलवामा happened. आपने लिखा कि आपको बुलाया गया इंडिया और आप सब मिनिस्टर्स से आप मिले, आप प्राइम मिनिस्टर से भी मिले और प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने आपसे सवाल भी पूछे. Can you bit elaborate on that? I would really like to know किस तरह का conversation हुआ without disclosing the sensitive details, but what exactly was the conversation?
Yeah, so, I'm not free to reveal anything confidential. अगर मैंने कुछ बताया आपको तो I'll have to shoot you and everyone hearing everything. So we don't want that to happen. But, मोटा-मोटा, each time I would come here, मेरी मुलाकात होती, लगभग हर महीने में वापस आता था और प्रधानमंत्री जी से बहुत बार मुलाकात हुई. तो basically I would tell him what is happening within Pakistan, क्या वहाँ के dynamics हैं, कभी-कभी चर्चा होती क्या policy options है हमारे, क्या हम कर सकते हैं. और what struck me was how aware he was on Pakistan. Obviously, he was getting his information from multiple sources and often knew more than I did. But it was very interesting that he was engaged with the issue, he understood it. And I mentioned this in my book that the Pakistan relationship is something that is personally managed by India's Prime Minister. And not now, but right from 1947. Because it's been a foundational problem for us. और एक policy का मुद्दा है, multiple prime ministers have tried to solve this problem and they are very engaged with this issue, and that's why I would get FaceTime with him very often to discuss this
Wow,
problem.
so you were FaceTiming with the Prime Minister. Wow, that's quite an honor, sir.
No, yeah, I meant FaceTime as in I go and meet him, not using my iPhone for FaceTime. Yeah.
I was just trying to, I was kidding around, all I can say that. Okay, so the question also that I want to ask you is, because we are talking about Prime Minister Modi, आपने वाजपेयी साहब के साथ भी काम किया, और ये कंपैरिजन में इसलिए ड्रॉ कर रही हूँ क्योंकि आपने कहा कि सारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स ने अपने अपने तरीके से इंडिया और पाकिस्तान का जो रिश्ता है उसको इस पॉलिसी को शेप करने की कोशिश की. आपने लिखा कि कैसे प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी ने वाजपेयी साहब का मॉडल फॉलो करने की कोशिश की फॉर फर्स्ट 20 मंथ्स ऑफ हिज टेन्योर. जब उन्होंने साक में बुलाया नवाज शरीफ को, उनके यहाँ पर शादी थी तो वो लाहौर पहुँच गए, तो प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने ये कोशिशें की. लेकिन अगर मैं आपसे कहूँ, और आपने वाजपेयी साहब के साथ भी काम किया, इफ आई आस्क यू टू कंपेयर द टू प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स, मोदी साहब वाजपेयी साहब से खास तौर पर विज़ावी पाकिस्तान, दोनों की अप्रोच में आपको क्या फर्क दिखाई दिया, अगर दिखाई दिया तो?
So, in the broad contours of the approach, I see no difference. बात ये थी कि this was several years later, right? It was a decade later that Prime Minister Modi was addressing the Pakistan issue, and it was 10 years earlier, and much had happened since then. उसके बाद मुंबई हो गया था, उसके बाद कई और चीज़ें हुई. मगर आप अगर शुरू की इंस्टिंक्ट देखें भारत के प्रधानमंत्री के 2014 में, it was the same instinct with which Prime Minister Vajpayee started, and in fact, for that matter, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh started. That can we get peace? And peace is not an objective in itself. Peace is that can I achieve my national objective of saying कि यहाँ से terrorism समाप्त हो, यहाँ से cross-border firing समाप्त हो, यहाँ से interference in India's affairs समाप्त हो. So can I achieve that objective by engaging that country, or do I achieve it by being tough on that country? So this is always a policy dilemma for India's prime ministers. And if you see the first 2 years of 18 months of Prime Minister Modi's tenure, 5 बार उनकी नवाज शरीफ से मुलाकात हुई. सबसे पहले उन्होंने अपने 2014 के इनॉग्रेशन में ओथ सेरेमनी में नवाज शरीफ को बुलाया. फिर खुद in 2015 he went to Pakistan. But the deal breaker in this relationship has in the last 30 years been terrorism. So again, right after PM Modi's visit in January 2016, we had Pathankot, फिर उसके बाद Uri हुआ, and that is always a deal breaker in the relationship.
आपने क्योंकि दोनों प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स का कंपैरिजन किया, मैं ये जो ग्रुप कैप्टन अभिनंदन को जब कैप्चर कर लिया पाकिस्तान ने, आपकी बुक जब मैं पढ़ रही थी तो जो सेंस आता है उस बुक से, उस स्पेशली पोस्ट बालाकोट एयर स्ट्राइक्स, पाकिस्तान गॉट पैरानॉइड. डिड यू आल्सो गेट दैट सेंस?
Yeah, so I give a very
फिर आपने इमरान खान नियाजी के कॉल का जिक्र किया है that he wanted to speak to Prime Minister Modi.
जी, तो ये बात है 26 फरवरी को जब बालाकोट स्ट्राइक्स हुए, उसके बाद 27 फरवरी को पाकिस्तान ने काउंटर स्ट्राइक किया कुछ भारत में आके, और अभिनंदन द पायलट वाज डाउन्ड इन पाकिस्तान. So the story of how that evolved is a story of coercive diplomacy and successful coercive diplomacy. तो मैंने जो विवरण दिया है वो पाकिस्तान की तरफ वहाँ क्या हुआ, तो वहाँ जो डिप्लोमेसी थी भारत की, कि पाकिस्तान समझ गया था उस समय कि भारत सीरियस है, कि अगर इस पायलट को नहीं वापस किया तो भारत इस मामले को एस्केलेट कर सकता है. और उसी के चलते मुझे ये रात को 12 बजे कॉल आया काउंटर पार्ट से कि इमरान खान वांट्स टू स्पीक टू पीएम मोदी, और मैंने उस समय वो चेक किया और उनको जवाब दिया कि नहीं, अभी मुमकिन नहीं है, आप अगर कुछ कहना चाहें तो आप मुझे कह दें. और उन्होंने बोला ठीक है, हम इमरान खान से पूछ के आपको बताते हैं. उसके बाद जो हुआ पाकिस्तान के अंदर, उसका विवरण बाद में बाहर आया, कुछ कहानियां बाहर आई. पाकिस्तान के पार्लियामेंट में एक वीडियो है जो वायरल हुआ जिसमें एक मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट ने कहा कि एक क्लोज डोर सेशन था, उसमें शाह महमूद कुरैशी आए थे, प्राइम मिनिस्टर इमरान खान वाज टू कम, ही डिडंट शो अप, जनरल बाजवा वाज देयर एंड ही सेड कि माथे पे पसीना था, टांगे उनकी कांप रही थी और उन्होंने कहा खुदा के वास्ते इस पायलट को छोड़ें क्योंकि भारत कुछ भी कर सकता है. तो दैट पीस ऑफ एविडेंस, देन द डिप्लोमैट्स were amplifying India's message. The American diplomats, UK diplomats, French, and all the diplomats were called in. They were given this message that India might be turning some missiles on us, and they gave a single message that please release the pilot. That will be a good thing to do. So they reported that Pakistan was spooked. So there is no enough evidence to say that Pakistan was flustered, worried. And that was a successful example of coercive diplomacy because 2 दिन में पायलट हमारे पास वापस आया.
एंड पूरी इंडिया ने उसे सेलिब्रेट किया, उस विक्ट्री को. इन अ वे इट वाज अ विक्ट्री टू गेट आवर पायलट बैक इन इंडिया. और जिस तरह से बिना एक फायरिंग किए वी मैनेज टू गेट हिम बैक, दैट वाज रियली कमेंडेबल. पाकिस्तान की जब बात की जाती है तो अक्सर एक सवाल मैं पाकिस्तानी एक्सपर्ट से भी पूछती हूँ. आपने वहाँ पर इतना टाइम बिताया और आपकी बुक में भी जिस तरह से आपने लिखा है, पाकिस्तान में आप किससे बात करेंगे? सिविलियन गवर्नमेंट से बात करेंगे आप, क्योंकि सिविलियन गवर्नमेंट के स्ट्रिंग्स तो आर्मी पुल कर रही है. लेकिन इस बुक को जब मैंने पढ़ा तो एक और चीज़ जहन में आती है, हाउ स्ट्रॉन्ग इज ISI? बिकॉज आपने पुलवामा के बाद भी ये लिखा कि nobody was certain how big a role was played by the army, or for that matter even Mumbai, or I think it was Pathankot and Uri also. You made similar sort of comments. So how strong is ISI? Because it seems the attacks that were carried out in Uri or in Pathankot or in Pulwama, they were mostly at the behest of ISI. Do I get it right?
Absolutely. I think that is correct. The big picture is that in Pakistan, the army is the all-powerful institution, not now, but for the last 70 years. Sometimes it takes over the front office, jab dictatorship aati hai, and sometimes it's in the back office controlling events. So either way, the army is powerful, and the army's instrument for managing neighborhood relationships and is the ISI. And the ISI deploys a tool which is using armed militant organizations like Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and Hizbul Mujahideen, not just these, but against others. So you saw that the US had a problem in 2011, Osama bin Laden ko liya gaya, to Al-Qaeda ko sharan di gayi Pakistan mein. Recently Iran attacked, so Jaish-e-Adal, a group which attacks Iran, had safe sanctuary there. So it's clear that the ISI feels that it's a legitimate instrument of foreign policy to deploy these organizations and mount terrorism there. Now what is debatable and security experts debate is har ek incident ko kiski table pe wo file jati hai. Whether Bajwa will personally approve something like Pulwama or it will go to the DG of the ISI. Will it be approved as a specific operation या बोला जाएगा कि अच्छा आप लोग कुछ करिए कश्मीर में जाके. So I think that is something security experts debate कि किसने कहाँ कहा. But there is complete clarity and no doubt that all these incidents will not happen without the blessings and the push of the Pakistan army.
Okay. And because we are discussing Pulwama a lot, if I recall, it was General Munir. Asim Munir was heading ISI, and he was later removed, obviously because of issues with Bushra Bibi. Sorry. And do you think what is playing out right now? Because Imran Khan Niazi removed him from the post of DG ISI, and since he has taken over as army chief, what is playing out also has a personal element. क्या वो पर्सनल जो दुश्मनी है जो कि इमरान खान ने जिसको स्टार्ट किया विद बाय रिमूविंग हिम एज DG ISI, वो भी कहीं ना कहीं प्ले आउट कर रही है? क्योंकि जिस तरह आर्मी, आपने खुद एक एंटी आर्मी सेंटिमेंट का जिक्र किया है.
बिल्कुल. आई थिंक दैट इज अ गुड क्वेश्चन टू आस्क. कितना उसमें पर्सनल एनिमोसिटी है और कितनी इंस्टीट्यूशनल एनिमोसिटी है वो कहना मुश्किल है. But certainly there is a personal history that goes down when, in a sense, Imran Khan fired Asim Munir as DG ISI because he was investigating Imran Khan's household and corruption in his household. तो इसलिए उनको निकाला गया था. But इस समय there is also a lot of institutional play. कि army feels that its interests are being threatened by Imran Khan. And this has happened, I mean, even before what happened on the 8th of February, which is the Pakistan election, उसके पहले 9th of May हुआ पाकिस्तान में, जो जब इमरान खान को अरेस्ट किया गया, और it was virtually a free rebellion, and it was a dangerous rebellion from the army's point of view, because what happened was that as a result of that, the army itself was split down the middle. तो army के अंदर एक और rebellion शुरू हो गया, और there were different points of view that many senior commanders of the army were with Imran Khan. So it is important for the army to try to bottle Imran Khan now. तो जो पाक सेना है, अब उसका गेम प्लान रहेगा कि किस तरह से ये इमरान प्रॉब्लम को कंटेन किया जाए. और इस बारे में इतिहास में भी जाना ज़रूरी है, बिकॉज यू नो वेरी क्विकली दिस इज़ रिमाइंडिंग पीपल ऑफ पाकिस्तान्स कंसिस्टेंट हिस्ट्री. इट्स नॉट समथिंग न्यू. तो 1977 में जो इलेक्शंस हुए थे, दे वर स्ट्रांगली रिग्ड बाय जुल्फिकार अली भुट्टो, एंड ही डिक्लेयर्ड मार्शल लॉ ऑल्सो यूजिंग द आर्मी. और उसके कुछ महीनों बाद ज़ियाउल हक डिड अ कू एंड ही टुक ओवर. और उन्होंने कहा कि 90 दिन के अंदर हम चुनाव करेंगे, बट 11 साल रहे उसके बाद. Before that, in 1970, when there were elections, similar elections, in December 1970, incidentally, the only free and fair elections in the history of Pakistan were in December 1970. And they had to pay the price of that by losing East Pakistan. उसमें क्या हुआ था कि after those elections, Mujibur Rahman, who was then in jail, like Imran Khan was in jail, won the majority, and the West Pakistanis and Yahya Khan were not willing to give it to him. And as a result of that, half the country was lost. So there is a trauma in the army. They are institutionally aware of this background, and therefore they would seek the legitimacy of the people and want to control this situation.
तो अभी काफ़ी सीरियस कॉन्वर्सेशन यहाँ पर हुआ है, और थोड़ा सा लाइटर नोट पर, क्योंकि सर यहाँ पर बता रहे हैं कि कैसे सीरियस कॉन्वर्सेशन होता है, और इसके कुछ ही दिन बाद, खास तौर पर पुलवामा में जो हुआ, सर वाज बैक इन पाकिस्तान इन 3 weeks टाइम. और एक कॉन्वर्सेशन आपने जिक्र किया है तब की फॉरेन मिनिस्टर सुषमा जी का और शाह महमूद कुरैशी का है, जिसमें सुषमा जी ने कहा बहुत कड़वा बोलते हैं, मीठा खाया कीजिए कड़वाहट को कम करने के लिए. एंड देन शी गॉट कॉम्प्लीमेंटेड फॉर हर साड़ी, एंड मैडम कॉम्प्लीमेंटेड हिम फॉर हिज शेरवानी. हाउ ऑफन सच कॉन्वर्सेशंस हैपन? After your answer to this question, I'll open the floor for further questions.
So, you know, quite often, but they're not always revealed in the public domain. उस समय ये बात पाकिस्तान के मीडिया में उछाली गई, as if it was a very serious, you know, bilateral breakthrough. तो क्या हुआ था कि सुषमा जी मेरी मंत्री थी, तो मैं जब उनके पास गया और उन्होंने कहा कि भाई ये शाह महमूद इतना कड़वा क्यों बोलते हैं, तो मैंने बोला मैडम आप बोलिए उनसे क्यों इतना कड़वा बोलते हैं, आप पूछिए. तो बोला बिल्कुल पूछूंगी, और मैं तो सोच रही हूँ एक मिठाई का डब्बा ले जाऊँ और उनको बोलूँ कि आप थोड़ा मिठाई खाया करो, आप इतना कड़वा बोलते हैं भारत के खिलाफ. तो ये जब मीटिंग हुई उनकी 3rd कंट्री में SCO समिट में, तो उन्होंने एक्चुअली ये बात कही और कहा कि आप कड़वा कम बोला करिए. सो कुरैशी हिमसेल्फ मेंशन दिस. बट यू नो डिप्लोमेसी में हम इनको यूजुअल कर्टसीज कहते हैं कि इट्स यूजुअल कर्टसी. इट डजंट मीन दैट देयर इज अ न्यू स्टेज इन द रिलेशनशिप. भाई बातचीत हो रही है थोड़ी.
But interesting conversations and that keep the relationship going. So now the floor is all yours. May we have the first question, please? Sure, sir.
Giving a mic to him.
Just one question from history, because you have covered the entire history of Indo-Pak relations. Do you think that 72 was a wasted opportunity as far as Shimla summit is concerned?
Yes, I think that's a great question, but you know, it was a very complex situation, and I think we need to judge every decision in history by the circumstances prevailing at that point. So 1972 में जो शिमला समझौता था, that was done by Bhutto and Mrs. Gandhi. There was a critique that we gave up too much. We had 90,000 prisoners. Why did we not use that leverage? But the fact is, and this is shown by history, that there are multiple forces at play. Global factors भी थे. रशिया के साथ हमने इंडो-सोवियत ट्रीटी साइन की थी. US और चाइना का डर था कि वो आ ना जाए. तो what was India's view at that point कि ये एक मूव है हमारी केवल ईस्ट पाकिस्तान को बचाने के लिए and to free East Pakistan. It was not our intention to take over territory in West Pakistan or retrieve territory in Kashmir. So this has been debated. Some people felt that perhaps we should have gone more. But I think we have to judge it from that point of time. What I've presented in my book is a detailed assessment of what was done. And I think it was one of the finest moments for India's military strategy, diplomatic strategy, and leadership. The mic is with you.
Good afternoon, sir. I have done my bachelor's in international relations back from Calcutta Presidency University. I'm pursuing master's right now. I'll just go to the question. You talked about the 2008 Mumbai attack. Ajit Doval, on the basis of that attack, he just said that you do one more Mumbai, there will be no more Balochistan, right? So we have seen an economic crisis in Pakistan, which is happening since a very long time, like the agriculture, the flood, Imran Khan falling down, and all of these. China is having a rising influence in Pakistan on this context, for the verge of helping Pakistan with all its crises and the breakdowns. So the first question here is, will India have an effect for the rising Chinese influence in Pakistan? Or will it be normal, relations will be in a normalized manner with both the countries, Pakistan as well as China? And on the second context, it is that there are Indian laborers at Gulf. They are made to work in a forceful manner. So the very question which arises here is, what is the Honorable Prime Minister actually doing? Is he a noble, selfless Prime Minister acting effectively for the interests of all the countrymen? Or is he just an autocratic right-wing bigot transforming the plural India into a Hindu Rashtra?
Okay, so, you know,
your first,
let me address your first question. The second, I presume, was just finding a platform. The first question, you know, you ask about Pakistan and China and talk about normal relations. They are anything but normal. Pakistan and China are both two very abnormal neighbors of India. You know, one is a state run by a communist party, the other is a state run by an army. And with both, India has had difficult relations. One promoting terrorism, the other promoting expansionism in Ladakh and in a border. So we watch both of them very carefully, and certainly both India's military and political and diplomatic strategy is to observe them closely and diplomatically deal with any situation of their collusion. But India needs to be prepared for a situation that they collude in terms of capacity and to deal with that situation both diplomatically and militarily. Thank you.
In fact, in your book, you have said Pakistan and Chinese armies, equipment and military exercises in common, doctrines in common, and adversary in common.
Absolutely. So, you know, there is an incentive to both these countries to come together in a strategic alliance against India, and India needs to war game this situation. We need to be aware of a possible future scenario and to deal with it, just like we are doing in multiple ways through our diplomatic, military, and national strategies. We need to deal with it.
Can we have the mic over here? Also, sir?
Yeah,
Hello.
great.
Good afternoon, sir. So we have seen a diplomat in politics. क्या हम आपको politics में expect कर सकते हैं anytime soon?
No, not anytime soon. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, writing and doing other stuff. तो मेरी कोई बहुत खास रुचि नहीं है उस दिशा में. So no, I don't think I'm very excited about politics.
What will you like to say about Dr. S. Jaishankar? Because that's what she was actually hinting at.
So, you know, we have lots of diplomats who have joined politics, and Dr. Jaishankar is someone we are really proud of, because he's someone from within us, from the Indian Foreign Service, and we feel that it's a huge compliment to the political leadership of PM Modi that he would recognize that talent and deploy it, and B, it's a compliment to the professionalism of Dr. Jaishankar personally and the service he represents, that, you know, he is considered someone who can do this job. And I must say he's doing it brilliantly. We are all very proud of him.
Can you pass on the mic to him? Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, sir. So when you have the capacity, intent can change overnight. And Pakistan is lacking in capacity. However, their intent remains the same, as echoed by Mr. Bhutto Zardari, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari last year, कि वक्त आने पे हिंदुस्तान को ऐसा जवाब देंगे. So when these things happen, can we still expect a promising and secure future with Pakistan? Thank you.
You know, I think it's a very good question, and this is always debated, both capacity and intent. You know, you may not have the capacity but have the intent. You may have the capacity but no intent. You judge countries by their capacity. But also factors change. Countries change, their views change, and I think that's why diplomacy is important. So we need to have all national tools to deal with a complex problem like Pakistan, कि आपको अपनी डिप्लोमेसी भी इस्तेमाल करनी है, आपको अपना इकोनॉमिक लीवर्स को भी इस्तेमाल करना है, and you also have to use your military in dealing with this problem now and in the future.
हेलो सर, माय क्वेश्चन टू यू इज कि आप पाकिस्तान में इतने टाइम तक आपने सर्व किया है, तो कोई ऐसी कहानी या ऐसा जिक्र आप जो करना चाहें, मतलब जो पाकिस्तान के लोगों से रिलेटेड आपके जहन में कुछ ऐसा रह गया हो तो आप बता सकते हैं उसके बारे में.
देखिए, पाकिस्तान की बहुत सारी कहानियाँ, कुछ को कहानियाँ हमने आज डिस्कस करी, कई सारी इस किताब में हैं, तो आप किताब पढ़ें. प्लीज, दैट्स अ प्लग, प्लीज डू रीड द बुक. बट यू नो, देयर आर मेनी स्टोरीज, एंड one of the things we face is the paradox of diplomats in Pakistan. कि आपके सुबह के conversations हुए तो they can be very hostile, कि कुछ बात हो रही है किसी विषय पर जिस पे हमारे विचार बिल्कुल अलग हैं. आफ्टरनून में आपके और कॉन्वर्सेशंस हो रहे हैं जो कई और लोगों के साथ होंगे, डिप्लोमैट्स के साथ होंगे, और शाम को ये ऐसे घुल मिल के हम लता मंगेशकर के गाने सुनेंगे जैसे कि बिछड़े हुए भाई. तो यू नो, इट्स अ पैराडॉक्स कि इतनी हॉस्टाइल एनवायरनमेंट में भी बहुत सारी दोस्तियां होती हैं, और एक झलक इससे मिलती है कि लोगों के स्तर पर भारत के प्रति काफ़ी पॉजिटिविटी है, और स्पेशली यंगर पीपल now have begun to look at India with admiration कि हम भी इस तरह के हो सकते थे या हमें भी होना चाहिए, and the official narrative is being pushed back.
I want to know your sort of future prognosis of Pakistan, keeping in view the latest happening in Pakistan. Not the government formation, we know what is going to happen on that, but the one term you use, youth bulge, plus diminishing role of army. So I want to know your comment. Is army going to really lose its substance in the way it has been functioning in Pakistan in future, or it's going to reinforce itself again and become more vigorous and more punitive towards the civil society or to the civil government? I just want to have your just thought on that.
So, you know, I think that is a $1 million question which is now being debated in Pakistan. Will the army double down or will it back down? So what we have seen after these elections is an army that is trying to, that has won this round, in the sense that politically it has won this round, it's got what it wanted, a weak coalition government, Imran Khan contained, and a reasonable control over the situation. Where it has lost is the message from the people and a very strongly anti-army vote. So its credibility is dented domestically and globally. So what will the army do is very hard to predict, but certainly if I was the Grand Tsar advising the Pakistan army, I would ask them to gradually back out of the polity and the economy, both of which they have been responsible for ruining. They should stick to security and back down. Whether they will do it is the million-dollar question.
Just to take his question further, do you see Pakistan disintegrating in future? Because I read a lot from Mr. Stuff from Mr. Tilak Devishar, though he gives a different sort of reasons for that. But with movements in Baluchistan, in Sindh, POK, which belongs to India, do you really see Pakistan disintegrating in 5 years' time, or do you think Pakistan will be able to keep the territory intact?
You know, again, that is a scenario that cannot be ruled out. So when we do any kind of planning, we need to be aware of scenarios and give them probabilities. So at the moment, it does appear that Pakistan has some very serious civil society movements, the Baloch movement, the Pashtun movement, and multiple other kind of movements. The threat from the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan from Afghanistan has coalesced the Pashtuns together, and it's become an anti-Punjabi sentiment that is getting together with the Baloch. So Pakistan is under different kinds of internal threat, and this scenario can't be ruled out, that somewhere in the future it disintegrates. There has been a lot of conversation around this, and that Pakistan's friends will not let it disintegrate, but also Pakistan has run out of its geopolitical salience. So in a sense, the US and Chinese support is also not coming so easily. So it's run out of money, it's run out of friends, and it faces serious problems. So Pakistan is going through a serious crisis, which needs the army to reconsider what it's doing.
So are we running out of questions, or so many questions still? But before I proceed further, you have to give him a huge round of applause. He has been taking each and every question. And then I'm also bothering. Maza nahi aa raha hai taaliyon mein. That's better. So who's going to take the next question? Okay. So can we have the mic over there? Then to sir. Okay? First here and then over there.
Good afternoon, ma'am and sir. So my question is that Nawaz Sharif was brought back to Pakistan from England to fight the elections, and he was expected to win the elections. So why is Shahbaz Sharif with Bilawal Bhutto winning the elections right now?
So that's a great question from the young man. You know, when Nawaz Sharif was brought back, Nawaz Sharif's hope, I think, was that he'll get a 2/3 majority or a majority in parliament with the vote, but he got only about 75 seats. Whereas the majority mark is 134. And so therefore he could not form a majority government, and he will do, possibly do what we had in the UPA government, a model as in Sonia Gandhi being the chairperson of the UPA and a prime minister running it, and have his brother as prime minister. But a likely scenario has been that the army favors always weaker coalitions. Because if you have one civilian politician who's very strong, the army cannot control him easily. They saw that with Imran Khan, and they saw that thrice with Nawaz Sharif. Thrice the army threw him out. In 93, in 99, and again in 2016-17. So they did not want a situation with the powerful Nawaz Sharif. So one of the speculations in Pakistan is they don't want Nawaz Sharif to be too popular. In fact, their ideal scenario is perhaps minus Imran and minus Nawaz.
Hello, good afternoon. So I wanted to ask about the surgical strike policy. So isn't it we playing at the hands of the deep state, like whenever they want to increase the heat around the borders or the policy level, they can just do some attack here and there, and we are engaged in that, and the whole build up that we are doing in the relationship that get lost or get the steam is lost. So I want to ask that the surgical policy, like we should relook at that, or it's.
So I made the argument that the surgical strikes and the air strikes were a very important paradigm shift for India, which sent a very important message to Pakistan that India was serious about countering terrorism coming from Pakistan, and to do it in a way that can put a cost to Pakistan's army. So I would say that it's what India has developed is a credible deterrent against terrorism, which India did not have in the 2000s and the 80s and 90s. So I think it's a smart policy, and it should be continuing.
राधे राधे सर, मैं भरतपुर राजस्थान से बिलोंग करता हूँ। तो मोदी जी ने से रिलेटेड थोड़ी जो नोटबंदी की थी उसके बारे में आपसे पूछूंगा। उससे पहले क्या ब्रज भाषा में मैं आपसे बात कर सकता हूँ?
मगर नोटबंदी इस किताब का विषय नहीं है, तो आप इस किताब के बारे में पूछे तो ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा।
चलो ठीक है।
आपका क्वेश्चन क्या है?
अपना सवाल पूछिए।
क्वेश्चन है सर के लिए।
ठीक है। तो साहब, मोदी जी ने जब नोटबंदी करी आई तो उस टाइम को आप असली नोटबंदी कहेंगे या बाजार में थे 2000 के नोट वापस ले लिए मोदी जी ने, बाय असली नोटबंदी कहेंगे? और पहले की जो करेंसी को जो नोट हो वो बहुत बढ़िया हो, और अब को थर्ड का बहुत हल्की क्वालिटी कर दी है। तो इसके बारे में थोड़ी सी आपसे जानकारी चाहिए कि आप इसको क्या प्लानिंग कहेंगे कि मोदी जी क्या सोच रहे हैं, क्या ना सोच रहे हैं। बस
देखिए, दुर्भाग्य से मैं इस विषय में विशेषज्ञ नहीं हूँ, क्या सोच रहे हैं क्या नहीं सोच रहे हैं, और ना ही नोटबंदी पे। तो आपको किसी और विशेषज्ञ के पास जाना पड़ेगा।
नहीं, लेकिन उन्होंने कहा ना कि वो ब्रज से हैं, तो एक ऑब्जर्वेशन है। आपने भाई बुक में लिखा, और मैं खुद भी उत्तर प्रदेश से आती हूँ सर, आपने लिखा आई चोज लैंड ऑफ माई बर्थ टू यूपी, यू चोज कश्मीर विच इज लैंड ऑफ हिज बर्थ, to UP from where I come, and UP is your land of ancestors. Bhai, ye nainsafi kyun thi? No, I'm just talking in my context. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think not that I love UP less, but the context of the issue was that when I visited Kashmir in 2019, for me professionally that was very important, क्योंकि मैं उस समय पाकिस्तान में स्थित था और कश्मीर का मुद्दा चल रहा था, कश्मीर में काफ़ी परिवर्तन आ रहे थे. So I wanted to go and see what exactly was happening in Kashmir, have those conversations with the Indian Army, with our leadership there, and see how things were changing. और उसके बाद मैं जब लौटा कश्मीर से, तो मैंने अपने including पूरे political leadership के साथ बातचीत करी, including with the Prime Minister and National Security Advisor. So I felt that the time had come for India to have definite and distinct policies for Pakistan and Kashmir. Pakistan is a foreign policy issue. ये एक विदेशी issue है. And Kashmir is a domestic issue. So we should not be conflating the two. दो अलग-अलग मुद्दे हैं, उनमें दो अलग-अलग नीति होना आवश्यक है.
सर को माइक दे दीजिए. Yeah.
Hello sir, good afternoon. Myself Narendra Thapa, and currently I am pursuing Masters in International Relations at South Asian University. Sir, my question is, since 2020, both the High Commissioners of both the countries is not functioning. So sir, is there any engagements or discussions going on to reinstate the High Commissioners of both the countries, sir? And
yeah, good question. Not at the moment. From what I understand, I am not part of government, but you know, it's not a good time when you have elections. So Pakistan will have its elections, India will have its elections in June, and perhaps in the second half of the year there will be more clarity and there will be more visibility on what kind of regime we have in Pakistan and what they want to do. So perhaps we can have those conversations around then. And for India, an important consideration is that we can take forward our relationship, but in an atmosphere free of violence and terror. So there should be no violence, no terror, and we'll be willing to take it forward. So I look at it with some cautious optimism that perhaps the situation will be better in the second half.
Mike over there.
Thank you, Ajay, for this wonderful toward the horizon of your book. I have a brief comment and a question. The comment is that despite the state of our bilateral relations over 76 years, that has not stopped India and Pakistan from cooperating in multilateral forums. For example, trade, for example, climate change. They have actually collaborated, and they have been part of, various, groups, which have acted in concert. But my question is this: that do you think that the whole constellation, India, Pakistan, China, Afghanistan, the US, this represents an almost perfect example of Chanakya's mandala theory?
No, I think that's a great question, sir, and requires a longer discussion. But I would agree with you that India's diplomacy should be much more flexible. And this is the day and age in diplomacy of issue-based alliances. So we have multiple issue-based conversations around trade, around climate change, even in the Quad context, say limited issue-based countries coming up. On the Mandal, I think, I don't think it will be exactly of that nature, but it's something worth studying and worth looking at very closely. Whether Chanakya got it right when he predicted the way the world would obtain. But I think in a realist world, we need to be very closely watching it and pragmatically watching it, rather than putting any strong ideological framework on what we do.
Hello, sir. Sir, I have one question and one request to get my book signed by you. And sir, the question is, sir, I want to ask you about Aisha Siddiqui and Aisha Jalal, who are commentators based outside Pakistan. They write about that India should talk with the deep state directly, communicate with the deep state to get the better perspective of how India should work with, to bring peace in the region. So I want your comments on that. Can we have the opportunity to directly talk with them, the ISI chief or the army chief, and communicate our views, or we need to go through the civilian government route, and which doesn't lead to any fruitful results?
Yeah, I think that's a great question and something that engages policymakers. Now, the two people you mentioned, Aisha Jalal is a professor at Tufts University. She's a historian. So I don't think she has made any policy prescriptions on who India should be talking to. But Aisha Siddiqa is an excellent specialist on the Pakistan military. She's based in London. And I would agree with the proposition that India should be engaging with Pakistan's army, which is the power center in Pakistan, and to be understanding what the army says, whether covertly or overtly. And we should, it clearly, I make the case in the book also, that even if we have, certainly we should engage with the civilians, but always triangulate that with what the army is thinking, because often in the past, we have talked only to the civilians to face an army veto later. So we should make sure that the Pakistan army is on board in any major policy initiatives that we take in the future.
Good afternoon to you, Ajay. My question to you is very simple. Who controls the anger management of Pakistan?
Thank you, Abhinav. So I think I didn't want to stretch this analogy too far, but certainly I would advise Pakistan's army to be less angry, because we've seen this in the past in multiple times, how short-term passions have dictated policy. So, even 1965, the argument was that Ayub Khan probably had several whiskeys, and one day he met a clique of people and said, "Chalo, Kashmir mein fatah karte hain." So, you know, it was something which was taken with a clique of people, not done very seriously. Similarly, when Musharraf took this decision of Kargil, there was a small clique of 3-4 people and very hidden agenda. So, you know, it's a short-term pet project of individuals rather than a thought. And I would argue that this has caused Pakistan even more damage, even more damage than it caused India.
Can I just conclude the session? Huh? Or the final question, quickly, please.
Actually, I have seen that all across the world, the trend is most of the countries are making regional alliances. And these are like indispensable, inevitable in this present scenario wherein people need, cooperation on the borders. We have North African Alliance, we have ASEAN, we have China is making Belt and Road, and we already have North American alliances. Why is India not in a position to form an economic alliance with its neighbors, which is getting pretty complicated these days? I mean, is there any possibility that we can forge on a positive note a regional alliance which is workable?
No, absolutely. I think that has been the attempt. From the 80s, we started SAARC, right? What was SAARC? SAARC was an attempt to include all countries, including Pakistan, in an economic arrangement that would be beneficial for the whole region. It didn't work for various reasons. So what we have to be mindful of is that when we have two very abnormal neighbors like China and Pakistan, we need to be more creative in the kind of alliances we make. So we have BIMSTEC, for instance, which is a regional alliance but does not include Pakistan. But all these are parked ideas. Somewhere in the future, when Pakistan changes its behavior, we can put out SAARC from deep freeze and use it. Similarly, with China, we've faced multiple pushbacks on various forms. But once we have tranquility at the border and things change, we could be having that conversation with China as well. But the basic point is well taken, and that is what Dr. Pradipta Ghosh also mentioned, that we need creative diplomacy and creative alliances to further our national interests.
So I would conclude the session with the very word that you have used pretty often in the book, that is caution. So let's, it's a hope with the caution that someday relations would be normal, and we'll be back to the tables and having conversations which are meaningful. And Pakistan, I really don't know whether it's really possible, or I should even hope for it, that Pakistan would give up its policy on using terror against its neighbors. But thank you so much, sir. I really enjoyed the conversation. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram, sir.
Thank you, Aditi. Thank you very much.
A huge with special references to envoys and ambassadors, just like our esteemed guest. A huge round of applause, everyone, again.
I must compliment, sir. This is the first session out of 7 sessions of Bharat Literature Festival that you guys have asked the maximum questions. So it shows that सर ने जो बात की वो हम लोगों के दिल के कितने करीब है, लेकिन तालियां मिस हो गईं. So एक बार थैंक यू सो मच. और जब भारत पाकिस्तान की बात हो और भारत माता की जय ना बोला जाए तो मजा नहीं आएगा. भारत माता की, भारत माता की, भारत माता की, वंदे वंदे